Whether you're a suburban athlete or an Olympic champion, you've got to work hard to get results. We've put over 15 years experience into developing Active Man, combining vitamins, minerals and proteins. Active Man helps provide you with the nutrients you need to optimize performance and assist recovery. Discover the Active Man range, now available. Active Man, power up.
Welcome to this week's Power Progress podcast. And this week, for the third time, he's joining me on Series 3, and that's Arjuna Ishaya. And basically, I mean, obviously you can bring in yourself, you can introduce yourself, mate, because you've been on a few times now. But first of all, how are you doing, mate? You good?
I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, I just had a wonderful Mother's Day weekend. So yeah, I'm buzzing.
Nice one. And I know you've done, you do a few sort of weekend retreats, don't you, where you bring people together. Maybe explain a bit more about that.
Oh, well, I teach a meditation called Ascension, and it's a face-to-face course. So yeah, it's been amazing. Lockdown finishing and be able to see people, teach, feel people rather than just through a screen. Yeah. It's so much more alive, so much more satisfying, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can feel the difference when you see people in person. And I actually experienced your launch of your book, and that was a great day. I really enjoyed that. And that was the first time kind of we've met in person, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And yep. It's, we were saying just before, just how I went for a walk up a mountain with a guy who's now a friend after that walk, and just how face-to-face going out and doing something different is so see how much life it gives me.
Yeah, that's Phil Highland, isn't it? You're talking
Phil
about
Highland. Yeah.
Yes. He's been on 2 podcasts as well. No doubt he would be on this series again, but we were just talking that we definitely should make a date with that for the 3 of us, or maybe more of us, to do a walk. So you done a peak walk in England. What was that place called? What was that particular mountain?
Scafell Pike.
Nice. How long did it take you? How long was that?
It was about 7 hours. We went right around the back and found a gully that it's not the usual way up. We did a bit of scrambling, so it was really fun.
Nice. And obviously, you met Phil. Was that online before? Was that the first time you met him in person? Yeah,
right. I met him over a sausage roll for about 10 minutes at one of Paul Mort's events, and that was the first time I'd actually done a few of his group things, and but first time in person.
Wow. And obviously, they said from the experience of us having to experience a lot more the technology side, like doing this, it really does make you appreciate that feeling of seeing someone in person, doesn't it?
It does. But the thing that did it for me was during lockdown. I was so focused on my family, and then I just locked myself away in my little office room, doing my thing that I love to do.
Yeah.
But getting out and having that balance of all the other things that I love to do really, I thought my excuses were coming. I was going, well, I can't, I'm busy, and maybe I should cancel or postpone. I can't take a whole day off. And at the end, it gave me so much more energy and so much more perspective and clarity that, like I was saying, I've got to do it. I've got to do it more often. It showed me how doing those important things to us, they don't take away. They always magnify and increase. So showed me that.
That's good. I mean, and throughout that experience of lockdown, did you find yourself being really good in that environment? Did you manage to adapt pretty quickly?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of like my practice, is to be ultimately flexible and as adaptable as I can to reality, because there's no point arguing with the way things are. And maybe there's a case to be made in terms of politics. Well, we've got to fight for what's ours or whatever. But it was like, for me, it's that it's always going with as opposed to against. And I think that's causes me the most suffering in the past is when my plan meets reality and I don't give up.
Yeah.
I think that's same for all of us, is when we struggle
Yeah.
against something that's true, it's just a fact.
Yeah, that is good. And I think there were so many people out there who really did struggle through, obviously, if we want to talk about having less freedom, which obviously we can go into a bit more, but having that ability to really just not fight against it and adapt. But I think at the same time, what's important is making sure that when you can do other things, you're not then restricting yourself because you're in a new habit. I think that's really important as well, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't want to get stuck in a rut. No, it's one of those internet memes I saw way back. Was we weren't put on this planet. We weren't born to pay bills and die.
Yeah.
And we can get into this little rut of that's what we do. That this is the urgent stuff. And I know we've talked about this before, but we tend to leave what's truly important to us to later, and it's such a shame.
Yeah. I think what's really important, the message is, because obviously there is a lot going on in the world at the moment. Obviously, first we've had to restrict ourselves and stay indoors, as it were, and be restricted of what we could do. And then now there's other influences, isn't there? There's money going to cost, for products and services now. Your money's not going as far. There's conflict going on in the world a bit closer to home. So all these factors, do you think could influence people's decisions and make them almost feel like they can't do anything?
Oh, always. And maybe it's that just sense of worry, and even if it's just low level, but constant worry and anxiety about, hey, my bills are going through the roof. I've got to, find security for myself and my family. And yeah, it can be tough if you get lost in that.
Yeah. And I think what you've got to try to do, isn't it, in this scenario, is we can fall into worrying about stuff. But I think what makes it, if you like, destructive or unhealthy is when you're worrying about things you have no control of. That's what's hard, isn't it? It's when people fall into that hole. If they can't control it, then it's just going to keep building up inside, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how would you deal with that sort of stuff? How would you personally get out of that, or would you even fall into that in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I'm a monk and meditation teacher. It really, that's my practice. That's what I've taken vows to, is really to the present moment, because I've seen the destructiveness of the mind when it gets stuck into the past or the future. That it really creates. It can distort the whole world completely. So all you see is your worry.
Yeah.
You don't appreciate the goodness of life as it is right now, the facts of life. We completely bypass those for an idea, a maybe, a regret, or even a nostalgia, how life used to be. We can get so lost in a memory, in a thought, that the whole world vanishes. And that's a shame, because I think, I wrote about this a few months ago, but Billy Joel, he wrote a song, We Didn't Start the Fire. And he was growing up in the 50s, and some kids later on were saying, well, it was easy for you. Nothing happened in the 50s. And he's like, hang on. The Second War has just finished. The Korean War is kicking off. There's the Suez Canal disaster. There's so many, the Cold War's fully going. Since the world's been turning, there's always been periods of conflict and disaster and things that we can worry about. And I think that's the principal point, is worry doesn't help. It takes away your ability to help. and we can be talking about your mum's sick, or you can be talking about this world Ukraine conflict and the fact that all prices are going through the roof, and how am I going to afford? Worry doesn't help us from dealing effectively or efficiently or with a smile on our face with any of life's worries, any of life's challenges. And I like that thing about Billy Joel, just always reminds me that the world's been in a state of disaster and peace, disaster and peace forever. And really we can focus on the disaster, hoping it's peace. We can focus on the peace, trying to avoid the disaster and the conflict, or we can really truly find peace and security where in the one place it exists, which is within us, not external to us.
That's great. Yeah, and I was going to say, I guess the fundamental thing with that is flipping that worry to looking for a solution of now, isn't it? What you could make the most of right now. Yeah.
And that's always been I used to, before I started meditating, I used to run this little flow chart, and it was, I had a concern or a worry, and I just sat down and said, well, can I do anything about it right now? In this moment in time, can I physically do something? Yes or no? I was like, tough talk to myself, but it was really good, because so often, 99% of the time, it was a no. I cannot do anything now. And if that was the case, okay, can I do something next week? Yes, maybe. Cool. Put a date in the diary, get back to it, Or, and that really was useful, because it put it to bed. I was like, I got to stop thinking about this, because it's just going to make me insane. Or if the answer is, can I do anything about it right now in this moment? If it's a yes, it's like, well, stop thinking about it, pick up the phone and do it. Walk out the door and create action. Because I was, well, I'm not sure, we have this ability to sit on the fence so well that, but it just creates suffering, because the fence just gets sharper and sharper. So, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if you're using that energy of focus, you at least feel like you're moving forward, and you're not building that tension up, are you?
Yeah. And I think that's what causes problems for us, is the feeling like we're out of control, that we have no power. And I'm sure psychologists have said this a million times, is that that's the source of all stress, is like feeling like we're not in charge of our own destiny. Either that, or it's not just, it's not fair. That kind of line of thinking that we fall into. It's not fair. It shouldn't be this way. Why is it this way? This is wrong.
Yeah.
And yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, it can be anything from, again, a worldwide conflict to being wrongfully accused of something by your ex-partner, to being, all of these things that we kind of get stuck into. You're right. It's not fair. It shouldn't be this way. The world can be different, should be different. But when you get lost in the problem, you get lost in the problem, and there's nothing left of you. And that's the ability going, yes, this is not fair. Step back and go, okay, well, what can I do? What do I want to do about it? And that I often, I run courses for the military, and I say, a boxer never walks into a fight angry. They're never emotionally blown out of control, because they've lost the fight already. And it's the same for us. If we want to make a difference, we can't lose the fight before we even get in the ring. And that's what so many of us do. We get so frustrated and so angry, and we can't sleep, and it ruins our whole life. This one situation is our life, as opposed to be able to stand back from it going, well, I don't like this. I'm going to do something about it. And yeah, I'm going to keep my cool, because I know that's where I'm most effective. And do you know what? I can actually put it down then and enjoy the rest of my life when I'm not working on it.
Yeah. I mean, procrastination, isn't it? That is, if it's not, because we go back to what you're saying about, can you do something about it now? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I can. Let's start acting on it. But the answer is no. What I like what you mentioned, and I think they call it, I think it's from Brian Tracy, Eat That Frog. I think they called it creative procrastination. It's like you said there, put a date when you can do something about it. Because that forms a shift, because you've let it go for now. Whereas if you just keep procrastinating without looking for a date to do it or a solution, it's just going to keep building and building inside, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that's super important. A lot of people don't use that tool with putting a date in of when they're going to start. That one thing they know is can affect them if they don't implement it the right way.
Oh yeah. I was talking to someone the other day about they wanted to lose some weight, and I'm saying, cool, awesome. Why don't you put a date in the diary? Monday morning, I'm just going to get up and go for a walk around the block. And they're like, well, my sleep's not so good at the moment. And I'm like, and I saw it was really clear in her. And again, I wanted to go have this adventure. I was constantly going, well, the conditions aren't perfect yet. And there's something about Monday morning, there's my shoes ready. I'm just going to get up and go no matter what. And something about that, putting a date in the diary, makes a world of difference. And I mean, in terms of my meditation practice and perhaps when I teach, one of the hardest things I think for people is to schedule it, is to say, you know what, this is important to me. And it's a practice, it's a time, so that if I do it consistently, I'm going to get the result that I want, maybe losing weight, maybe becoming more present and more full of peace, regardless of what I can't control and what's wrong, what should be. And it's really tricky just to really get people to see that sometimes. Say, hey, put the date in the diary and don't shift it. Don't kind of get to the place where I'll get around to it when I have time, because we never have time. We're busy people. And there's something about, boom, no, that's it. That's my time. I'm sticking to it. No matter how busy I feel, or this is it, gone. So,
I mean, it's interesting as well, which reminds me, is the power of the mind with, if you're chatting to someone and said, why don't you start Monday? And they was find any excuses for it, because some people need time, if you like, for the mind to find the pathway of starting.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, their mind isn't quite there yet. So when you put a date in, they say, I know, I'm going to do X, Y, Z in 2 or 3 weeks' time. You've already put that shift in, that you're heading towards it. So therefore, it's what they call a reticular activation system, where the unconscious now starts finding all these reasons of how you can get that result and how you can start that date. That's where I think creative procrastination comes in, and setting that date. Because now you're, if you like, I like using the term mentally preparing for something, because that's in effect what it's doing. You start looking and finding things, a reason why you should do that date of starting. And so when you do start, you're already there. You're already experiencing it before you get to that specific date. So I think that's really important in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, people say, I really want to do this, but they say they really want to do it because they think they should be doing it, as opposed to, I really want to lose some weight. Well, I can't actually be bothered. And that's fine. Or I really think I should meditate, but I don't want to. And it's like, well, that's fine too. Find something you do want to do. Yeah. You honestly really do want to do, because that forward progress, that creative procrastination, but it gives you life. It makes you feel like you're in control of your own life, right? Is that famous YouTube video of that admiral from the US who says, make your bed. Whatever you do, just make your bed, because that's the one thing that you're in control of, really, is your personal little kingdom or queendom of, I'm in charge of this. And look at that. It's beautiful. It's squared away. It's in a place. It's a place that I have authority. Because I know when I head out the door, sometimes you have no control over your days. You trip over the crack in the pavement before you even get to your car, before you even get stuck in traffic, before your boss starts yelling at you. But if you have that and you've had a good breakfast and you've been for your walk and you've done your meditation, it's like, yes, I have that internal location of, yes, I'm in a good spot. I'm in control of my own peace. I'm actually directing my own mind rather than my own mind driving me. So, yeah, I'm with you.
I like the part with the meditation, because I don't do the stereotypical meditation, if you like, but I find from searching myself, my meditation is when I walk or when I exercise. That's when I feel like I'll get more clarity. That's when I feel like I'll get new ideas. Do you think there's some people might be meditating without either consciously realizing they're doing it, or do you think it is something you need to be aware of?
I think it's both. Yeah, I think we do the things that we love to do because for the precise reason that they take us out of our heads. They take us out of the past and the future and really squarely place us in the present moment. We lose the worries and the dramas and the chaos because we're so in love with what we're doing. And in love is a funny word because you can be sweating in the gym and straining, and yet I love this. There's a feeling of moving forward, a feeling of progress, a feeling of control, a feeling of, yes, this is my spot. And so, yeah, it's, of course, doing things that you love is very meditative, but I think the power of a meditation practice is that it enables you to love everything that you do, as opposed to having these highlights in your day or your week. It becomes the ability to choose to embrace and be content and be immersed in any moment, even the tasks that you would prefer not to do. That's why I got into this is really because I used to be an outdoor instructor, and I'd be up some river and just like, yes, this is what I want my life to be about. And yet I couldn't live up the river. I couldn't live in the mountains. I always came home. And that feeling would last. And you know what it's like. You go to the gym or go for a good walk, or you have a really good meal with someone, and that feeling of being immersed in all is well lasts, but it always fades. And I wanted to capture that feeling. I wanted to be, because I recognized I couldn't run from life itself. I couldn't run from challenges. I couldn't run from the stuff that I'd rather not do. I can give a certain amount away, but sometimes I've just got to face up and eat that frog.
Yeah.
And the ability to show up present and not let this guy distract me or convince me I shouldn't do it. I think that's valuable. That's why I say both. I think it's so important to love what you do, what you love, but also love what you do.
Yeah. I think some people have more of a natural ability to, if you like, zone out, as it were, if you want to call it this. Yeah. And I remember I'd done a hypnosis course years ago now. And they say you've been in a position that you drove for hours and it feels like 2 minutes. And that's what they call symbolic state. I think that's what they call it. Free flow. I don't know if you've heard of that terminology, symbolic state.
No, but I know the experience.
Yeah. And because they reckon, when there's been people in the room when there's this magician on the front and they turn someone to a chicken and get them to do what they want to do, they reckon it's because that person is more prone to comply because he's very good at going into symbolic state, which is a free flow state, which I'm assuming would be the same as when you meditate, because that's kind of where you want to get to, isn't it? That sort of zone where you're in your own box. You're not thinking of the past. You're not thinking of the future. You're not even feeling like you're in the room even. You're just in this zone.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be, but it's a tricky thing because people think meditation means no thinking.
Yeah.
And I always liken it to being the difference between being stuck in a washing machine, so stuck in a mind with your thoughts and the dirty socks are slapping you in the face, and you're just sort of struggling with the voices in your head, versus stepping back from it and having some space from the things that seem to define us and make us worried, or all of the things that an out of control mind does. But from that step back state, things can be different. As you're saying, you can be completely immersed where, all sound, all sense of time disappears. The flow guys talk about stir, selfless, timeless, effortless, rich. And that can, in terms of a intensity dial, that can turn up and down. But really, we have very little control over that. What we do have control is stepping back from the mind and becoming more aware, more of the observer of all of this.
I guess that's the skill of doing it over and over again, that you're able to disassociate yourself, because that's kind of what you're doing. You're coming out of being associated in the scenario, and you're coming out of it and looking at yourself from, if you like, a third party, isn't you, really?
Yeah, yeah. And that's where clarity and the wisdom comes from. It's where your energy comes from. Because when you're wrapped up in the situation, you're almost like a monkey on a chain. You know, the organ grinders had the monkey in it. Oh, the monkey gets pulled, and we get pulled by the events. And so we get into the stuff where we're attached to good things happening and we're avoidant to the bad things. And just that step back, just a little bit, can help you. Well, you're free then. You're not overly attached to the good things, that you enjoy them still, but you're not avoidant and concerned about the bad things. You know that they go through the cycle. Things come, things go. And you're like, cool, I'm going to enjoy this while I'm here. I'm going to endure this while it's here, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it sounds great. And someone who's listened to this, if you feel at the moment, you feel that you've got some sort of feeling trapped, or you've got some anxiety, maybe drop us a message and, share your experience with us. Obviously, this is going to be on YouTube as well as the podcast. So it'd be great to hear from you if you've sort of connected this some sort of way. For someone who's listening, Arjuna, have you got like a final nugget or a final message, what you like to give to someone listening to us right now?
Yeah, I think it's, life gets tough. We suffer when we lose ourselves. We lose the sense of us. And we can easily lose the sense of who we truly are in the worries and the anxieties of what might happen. And really the answer is be as present as you can. Learn to step back from the worries, the concerns, the stuff of life, because the more you feed them, the more they grow. The more you can step back from them, the more they just lose momentum and don't have as much control, ultimately no control over who you are, how you show up in life. And I think that's just really a life skill, is to be able to choose what you focus on, because what you focus on grows. And I think it's never been so obvious, is that our minds are controlling us for a lot of people, rather than them being able to direct or shift or move their own minds. So yeah, there's an answer, there's a solution, and it's not about changing the external world. It's about working on yourself, taking an inner journey.
Nice. Next time we'll definitely have to do this in person, and I'm definitely up for doing a walk the next time you're doing it. So we'll definitely have to connect again, hopefully very soon. But it's been great to have you as usual. Always feel supercharged and relaxed after speaking to you. And I'm sure the listeners feel the same, exactly like I do. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, my pleasure, Nathan. As always, you're an incredible host. Always amazing questions. I love chatting with you. So yeah, it's a deal.
Fantastic. I'll speak to you really soon. See you later.